I should have known the second her mom walked in without a hello. Just a wrinkled nose and still smells like fresh paint in here, like that was a bad thing. I spent 8 months remodeling this house. After work, on weekends, late nights with aching hands and YouTube tutorials on drywall and crown molding. And not one person in Kendra's family said a word about it, except to point out what I should have done differently. My name's Ryan, I'm 45, I live just outside Austin, Texas. This was my first time hosting Thanksgiving. Our kitchen, our money, my labor. I thought, stupidly, maybe this year would be different. Maybe they'd actually treat me like family. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? Her dad strutted in right behind her mom, like some judge arriving at court. Didn't take off his shoes, didn't greet me, just looked up at the exposed beams and muttered, "Bit much for a starter home, isn't it?" I said, "Not a starter. We've been here 7 years." He blinked at me like I didn't exist. Kendra, of course, lit up the second they walked in. She threw herself into her mom's arms, kissed her dad's cheek, then turned to her sister and nephews, like she hadn't seen them in years, even though we visited them twice last month. Meanwhile, I was herding caterers, double-checking place settings, and keeping an eye on the turkey I paid $400 for, because Kendra insisted on heritage bred, free-range, organic, whatever. Then Nathan rolled in, her brother. Sunglasses indoors, breath stinking of last night's Jack Daniels. He fist-bumped me and said, "Damn, man, this place finally looks decent," then dropped his jacket on the stairs like I was the damn coat check guy. Nobody asked how work was going. Nobody asked how I'd managed to land the hotel renovation contract, the one that paid for this whole dinner, the furniture, the remodel, and their fancy-ass wine. When dinner started, her dad raised his glass like a hostage. "To family, I guess," he said. That was it. Not a word about the spread, not a word about the house. I sipped my wine and tried to shake it off. Then I caught him, her dad, muttering to her uncle at the end of the table. "Nice place, but Ryan doesn't do anything that actually matters." He didn't know I was behind him, grabbing a bottle. He didn't see me freeze, didn't hear my jaw lock, didn't feel the heat that crawled up my back and into my fists. But I heard every word. I turned and poured his wine, steady hand, dead silent, then walked out back like I needed air. But really, I just needed not to throw the bottle. I was barely through the back door when Rachel, Kendra's sister, popped up with her trademark concerned face, hands folded like she was at a funeral, soft voice like she was asking for directions. Fake, gentle. "Ryan, do you mind helping with Jason's school fees again?" Again. Like I hadn't already paid for private school, summer robotics camp, and the last-minute emergency laptop she swore he needed. I stared at her for a second, waiting to see if she'd flinch or at least pretend to feel awkward. She didn't. "Tuition's gone up," she added, twisting the gold bracelet I bought her for her birthday 2 years ago. We really wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either, not yet, because I already knew what was coming next. Nathan cornered me near the kitchen while I was tossing out wine bottles. His breath hit me before he did. "Hey man," he said, clapping my shoulder like we were frat brothers. "You think you could float me just for a couple months? Things are tight with my truck in the shop and work slowing down." Couple months. Same phrase every time. Last time was for a medical bill. Time before that, moving expenses. The man hasn't worked a full-time job since 2016, but he's always got a fresh iPhone and whiskey in his cup holder. "You know I'll pay you back," he added, grinning. "Soon as this new gig lands." I nodded, slow, walked away before my mouth said something I'd regret. Back in the hallway, I passed the framed photo of us at the cabin, the one in Oregon. The place I paid cash for under my name, but somehow became their vacation home, the big family dream. A place to reconnect, Kendra had said, where memories are made. They made memories, all right, mostly without me. It's been booked as an Airbnb for the last 18 months. I get the monthly income report in my inbox. I've never once seen a reservation under my name. I leaned against the kitchen island, lights dimmed, house dead quiet now, except for the ticking wall clock. Everyone had left, full and smiling. The kind of full that only comes when you're not the one paying. I pulled out my phone. First, her parents. Auto transfer of $2,500 a month. Supposed to be temporary. Started during their foreclosure scare 4 years ago. I'd bailed them out with $52,000. I have the signed agreement. Kendra called it symbolic. Turns out she was right. Pure symbolism. Never saw a dollar come back. Next, Rachel, 1,200 monthly. Started as just for 6 months. That was 3 years ago. Then Nathan, 900, no paperwork, just guilt and late night calls with, "Bro, I'm really drowning here." I stared at the screen for a second, then tapped through one by one. Cancel, cancel, cancel. The phone didn't slip in my hand. My fingers didn't shake. I didn't even blink. Just breathed, slow, deep, like my lungs were finally working again. Kendra wasn't in the room when I did it. She was upstairs, FaceTiming her mom about the new table runner. I left the phone on the counter and grabbed a glass of water, sat down in the dark. My whole body felt heavier, but in a good way, like I'd been holding something too long and finally dropped it. No more slow bleeds. No more soft asks wrapped in fake hugs. This wasn't revenge. This was oxygen, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel angry. I felt clean. I stood up, dumped the untouched wine back into the bottle, rinsed the glass, and turned off the lights. Upstairs, I heard Kendra laughing. Real loud, real fake. I didn't say a word. I just went to bed. I didn't wake Kendra, didn't leave a note. Just opened the closet, pulled out what mattered, and stuffed it into my old leather weekender bag. A few shirts, my sketch pads, my boots, that was it. Everything else could rot in the house with the people who drained me dry. By 4:45 in the morning, I was sliding the bag into the trunk. The driveway was dark, no sound except the low hum of my engine when I turned the key. My phone lit up before I even shifted into reverse. 41 missed calls, 38 unread texts. Not one of them said thank you. Just guilt. Just need. I pulled out anyway. The highway was empty, the kind of empty that felt like a dare. I pointed north and didn't look back. No radio, no music, just me and the road chewing up mile after mile. By the Oklahoma border, my phone buzzed itself half to death. I finally switched it to airplane mode. The second the screen went quiet, I exhaled. The silence wasn't scary. It was the cleanest thing I'd felt in years. 3 days of driving blurred together. Cheap motels, gas station coffee. Long stretches of sky so wide it made my chest ache. The farther I went, the lighter I felt. Like every state line peeled off another layer of their grip. When I finally pulled into the gravel drive at the cabin, the tires crunched like a welcome. My place. Paid in full. The deed had my name, even if they'd been trying to contest it. The wood siding looked weathered but solid. The windows caught the late afternoon light like they'd been waiting for me. I killed the engine and just sat there for a second, gripping the wheel. No one knew I was here. No one could take this from me. I unloaded my bag, hauled it inside, and dropped it by the couch. The cabin smelled faintly of cedar and dust. Their family photos were still on the mantel. Smiling faces, none of them mine. I didn't bother touching them, not yet. That first night, I stretched out on the bed, the quilt scratchy but warm, and I slept. Not restless half-sleep, not the tossing and turning I'd been doing for months. A full night. 10 hours straight. My body went heavy, and for the first time in over a year, I didn't dream about anyone asking me for anything. When I woke, light spilled through the curtains in soft stripes. My chest didn't feel tight. My jaw wasn't clenched. It was like I'd been reset. I made black coffee on the stove, pulled out a sketch pad, and sat by the window with a pencil in hand. For once, I didn't draw blueprints. No hotel lobbies, no renovation drafts, no notes in the margins for contractors. I sketched the pine trees outside, the slope of the hills, the jagged line of the horizon. My hand moved on instinct, not for clients, not to impress anyone, just me, just what I saw, what I felt. And I realized this was mine, this quiet, this line on the paper, this breath in my lungs. The world had been feeding on me for years, but here, in this cabin, with graphite smudges on my fingers and no one calling my name, I was untouchable. The cabin stayed quiet, but my phone didn't. I left it on the counter, screen dark, while the voicemail stacked up like dirty dishes. Your dad's insurance got denied. We're getting eviction notices. How could you do this to us? Never sorry, never once. Just panic, anger, blame. Like their lives were suddenly my fault for not paying their bills anymore. I didn't answer a single one. 3 weeks later, I was back in Austin, standing in the lobby of my office building. Fresh paint on the walls, a new receptionist desk, and a team buzzing upstairs that I'd built from nothing. They didn't care about my marriage, my in-laws, or their collapsing world. They cared about deadlines, design, and building something real. That was all I wanted. Upstairs, Margot was grinning like she'd won the lottery. "Ryan, you're not going to believe this," she said, waving a file. "That Dallas contract, they signed. Biggest one yet." I nodded, steady, no smile, just a calm weight settling in my chest. Their chaos was still out there, circling, but in here, we were thriving. That's when Nathan staggered through the lobby doors, shirt untucked, hair greasy, drunk at noon. He shouted my name like we were best friends meeting for lunch. Security froze. Margot's face dropped. "Bro, you can't do this to us," he slurred, loud enough for the whole floor to hear. "You're killing this family. We got nothing without you." I didn't move, didn't answer, just watched security escort him out while he kept yelling about loyalty and blood. His words bounced off the glass walls like cheap insults in a bar fight. The next day, I opened my email. Subject line: "Your behavior is disturbing. Kendra's mother." Her message was 3 paragraphs of venom. I was mentally unstable. I was abandoning my responsibilities as a man. I was endangering the family legacy. I closed the laptop without replying. That afternoon, I sat across from Daniel, my lawyer, calm, sharp suit, steady voice. He slid a stack of papers toward me. "They're contesting the cabin," he said, "calling it a family asset. They'll push hard, but the deed's clean. They don't have a case." I leaned back in the chair. Let them try. Daniel studied me. "They're not going to stop. You need to be ready." "I've been ready," I said. He nodded once, like he believed me. Back in my office, I rolled out fresh blueprints, black ink on white paper, lines clean and exact. Buildings that would stand longer than any of their excuses. The noise kept coming. Voicemails, emails, drunk visits, legal threats. But I didn't engage. I didn't waste a word. I just kept drawing. And at night, when the office lights dimmed and the city went quiet, I started planning something bigger than contracts or cabins, something that didn't include them at all. 3 days after Daniel laid out the timeline, Kendra showed up at my office with her nephews, Rachel's boys, standing awkwardly in front of her like little shields. One held a crumpled drawing, the other clutched a soccer trophy. "Thought maybe you'd want to see the kids," she said, like we were a happy couple just swinging by for lunch. "They miss you." I didn't say anything, just looked past her to Margot, who stood frozen at her desk. I gave her a nod. She picked up the phone. Kendra's smile dropped fast. "Ryan, are you serious? They're just kids. They love you." "You should go," I said, calm. "This isn't the place." She knelt down, whispering something to them. One looked confused. The other looked scared. I hated that part. But I didn't back down. When they left, Margot followed me into my office. "You okay?" I sat down hard. "I'm fine, just tired of being the emotional punching bag." Later that night, I saw the subject line. "Your mother-in-law collapsed at church. It's your fault." I didn't open it. I knew the script: drama, guilt, blame. Anything to pull me back in. The next day, I got a call from my cousin Eric. I hadn't spoken to him in a while, but he wasn't the type to waste time. "I've been hearing stories," he said. "Something about a breakdown? You off your meds or some crap like that?" I laughed once, sharp. "Yeah, that's what they're telling people now." "Bullshit," he snapped. "I told Rachel years ago, y'all were bleeding him dry. About damn time you stopped being their ATM." That one stuck with me. ATM, that's what I'd been. Cash with a heartbeat. Daniel called that afternoon. I stepped outside to take it. "They've got until March 15th, he said. "If they don't repay the full amount, the cabin deed flips back to you. Clean, automatic." "They won't pay," I said. "No," he agreed. "They won't." That's when the messages hit full blast. Calls, emails, texts, DMs from burner accounts. Kendra's mom, Rachel, Nathan. Even some cousin I'd never met claiming to be concerned. Half of them cried. The other half threatened lawsuits. I didn't respond. I saved every single one. Labeled them. Backed them up. Proof. They were building a case with guilt. I was building one with receipts. At night, I retreated to the garage studio, the one place still untouched by all of it, rolled out new blueprints under the work lamp, each line crisp and deliberate. This wasn't about buildings anymore. These were plans for a clean life, one with structure, boundaries, real walls that no one could walk through just because they shared my last name by marriage. I stopped answering Margot's concerned looks. I didn't need sympathy. I needed action. I worked late every night, designed apartments, commercial spaces, even a remote retreat center in Arizona. Work poured in because my name meant something now, not to my in-laws, but to real people who paid, respected, and stayed the hell out of my personal life. The pressure didn't slow down. Every time I silenced my phone, 5 more voicemails stacked up. The guilt machine ran 24 hours, but I was already gone. They just hadn't accepted it yet, and I wasn't wasting 1 more hour waiting for them to. I turned off the engine and stared through the windshield. There they were, lined up across the lawn like protesters outside a courthouse. My in-laws, Rachel with her arms crossed tight, Nathan pacing like a junkie, Kendra at the top of the porch steps, chin high like she was the queen of a burning castle. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to perform. I opened the car door and stepped out slow. I hadn't said a word yet and already felt the tension clawing through the air. Then her father moved first, walked straight toward my car, and planted himself in front of the bumper. "You show up here like this, you're a traitor," he spat. "You're selling out your own damn family." I pulled the folded paper from my coat pocket and held it up between us. "Read it," I said. "You left this voicemail. Word for word, you've never given us anything that mattered." He went pale, eyes flicking to the paper like it was on fire. I stepped closer. "Let's talk about what I gave you, the roof over your head, the lawyer that saved your business, 52 grand to keep this house, monthly payments you never once acknowledged." Rachel started crying, right on cue. Nathan walked up beside her and pointed at me like I'd kicked their dog. "You're blowing this up over money? You're destroying this family, man." "No," I said. "You destroyed it the second you treated me like a bank with a pulse." Kendra came down the steps fast, eyes locked on mine. "You walk through with this," she said, voice low and cold, "and you will never see your nieces again. Don't think we won't make that happen." "I figured," I said. "That's why I stopped calling." She blinked hard, like she wasn't expecting that. Maybe she thought I'd still bend when she brought up the kids. Not this time. That's when the auctioneer's truck rolled up. Big guy, clipboard in hand, tie loose, businesslike. He stepped out and looked around like he'd seen scenes like this before. Probably had. "Mr. Bishop?" he asked. I walked over and shook his hand. "We're ready." Behind me I heard her father's voice crack. "You don't have to do this. There's still time to fix it." "No, there isn't," I said without turning. The auctioneer pulled the clipboard up, cleared his throat, and started going through the opening bid. A couple cars had already parked across the street. Buyers, neighbors, curious strangers. Kendra's mom started yelling something about mental health. Rachel sobbed louder. Nathan kicked over a flower pot. I didn't flinch, didn't look back. When the gavel finally hit the tailgate of the truck, the house was no longer theirs. Just a number in someone else's portfolio. I shook the auctioneer's hand again. He nodded and turned to leave. Behind me, I heard nothing. Just stunned silence. Like they couldn't believe the world went on without them. I walked back to my car, slow, steady, past Kendra without looking her in the eye. She didn't speak, neither did I. As I pulled away, I checked the mirror. Her dad was still standing in the same spot, staring at the porch like it might rebuild itself if he just glared hard enough. I didn't smile, didn't shout, didn't gloat. I just drove away. Calm. Their world crumbled in real time, and I never raised my voice. 3 months later, I was in Santa Fe, signing the deed to a place that actually felt like mine. Modest adobe, high beams, clean light in every room. No drama hiding in the corners. No history clinging to the walls. The woman at the title office handed me the keys. I nodded, took a breath, and walked out into the New Mexico sun like I'd just been pardoned. The move was quiet. No moving truck, no crew, just me and a rented van. I unpacked only what I needed, my drafting table, one good skillet, and a single box of clothes. The rest stayed in Austin or went to Goodwill. Margot showed up the next week. She called me out of the blue. "If you're really doing this," she said, "I want in." Now she was living 10 minutes away and officially a junior partner in our firm. She earned it. We weren't chasing projects anymore. They were finding us. Word spread faster than I expected. Architects and developers I hadn't heard from in years were calling, texting, sending introductions. Not because I begged, because they trusted what I built. My work had outlived their stories. I'd get emails that started with, "I saw your design in," Or, "You're exactly who we've been looking for." Not once did anyone ask what happened in Austin. I spent my mornings walking to the cafe down the block, drinking black coffee while sketching new projects. Some days I didn't speak to anyone until noon, and that was fine. Silence, I'd learned, was productive. Daniel texted me one afternoon while I was sketching a community center for the West Side. Daniel, "They moved into a 2-bedroom. Daniel, "Nathan's doing construction work now. Rachel's back at her old job." Daniel, "Haven't heard a peep from Kendra in weeks." I stared at the screen for a second, then set the phone down. No reply, not out of spite. I just didn't feel anything worth sharing. Not anger, not smugness. Just relief. Later that week, I grilled steak in the cast iron skillet while the windows stayed open and the breeze rolled in. No sirens, no shouting, no one asking for favors, just quiet. Margot came by to go over site plans and stayed for dinner. We ate on the back patio, feet up, talking shop, and laughing harder than I had in years. "This place suits you," she said, sipping her wine. "You look lighter." I didn't argue. That night, I sat at the drafting table under the high beams, pencil in hand, sketching out a new proposal. Something experimental, something bold, something I never would have pitched back when I was buried under obligations. Now, every line I drew felt like mine. No one was looking over my shoulder. No one was draining my time, my wallet, or my sense of self. I wasn't just rebuilding my business. I was rebuilding the ground I stood on, and this time, the rules were mine. The email came in just after sunrise. Subject line blank. Just Kendra's name sitting there like a ghost. I clicked it, expecting more fire. Another guilt trip, another attempt to claw her way back in. Instead, it said, "I get it now. I'm sorry." 6 words. No attachments, no sob story, no mention of the house, the cabin, the kids, just that. I read it 3 times, sat there with the cursor blinking under it like it was waiting for something. I didn't type a word, didn't forward it, didn't delete it. I just archived it. That weight, the one I used to carry for everyone, that was hers now. I grabbed my keys and drove out to the Oregon cabin, the one they all used to treat like their personal vacation rental. Now it was quiet, mine again. No booze in the fridge, no Pinterest pillows with fake family slogans, just space. I walked the place room by room and started pulling down their photos. The ones from Christmas, the fake 4th of July cookouts, even the group shot from the Reconnect weekend I'd paid for but wasn't invited to. I boxed them up without a second thought, then went to the hardware store and grabbed what I needed. By the end of the weekend, the walls weren't bare. They held something better. Quotes about resilience, ownership, consequences, stuff that hit harder than forced smiles and matching t-shirts. A month earlier, I'd posted something online, a short note about burnout, boundaries, and rebuilding. Nothing fancy, just raw truth. It caught fire. Guys started messaging, asking questions, sharing stories, wanting to know how I'd done it, not just left, but stayed gone. So I turned the cabin into something useful. I called it Groundwork, a workshop for men trying to reset their lives after divorce, betrayal, burnout, real stories, real sweat. No pity parties, no motivational crap. They showed up from Texas, Colorado, Utah. Some were quiet, some were pissed off. Some were so numb they didn't know where to start. We chopped wood, drew plans, cooked simple meals, sat around the fire without pretending to be okay. It worked, not because I fixed anyone, but because I let them see it's possible to stop bleeding and start building. One night, after the last guy left for the airport, I stood on the porch with a mug of coffee and looked out over the hills. The same hills her parents said I'd wasted money on. The same ones they tried to steal, then abandoned. Now they belonged to something real. I turned 56 on a cool fall morning, steam rising from my coffee as the Sangre de Cristo Mountains lit up under the sunrise. Sharp, golden edges cutting through the blue. Peace wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was the view outside my window. Daniel showed up around 10. He brought green chili breakfast burritos and a 6-pack of the fancy beer I used to roll my eyes at. We sat in the kitchen while the morning warmed up. He wasn't just my lawyer anymore. He was steady, dependable. The kind of presence that didn't ask for anything, didn't keep score. Margot and Eric rolled in an hour later. Tamales wrapped in foil, cold beer in a paper bag, and no drama trailing behind them. Just laughs, real hugs, and a toast that actually meant something. "To Ryan," Eric said, raising his bottle. for finally building something for himself. I didn't say much back, just lifted my glass and took the moment in. No one here wanted anything from me. No one played nice to get a check or approval. They were here because they wanted to be. That night, after everyone left, I poured a single whiskey, stood on the porch, and checked my phone. One new message, Kendra. Didn't open it, didn't need to. Whatever it said wasn't for me anymore. In the morning, I headed out to the cabin. Cool air, pine needles crunching under my boots, smoke curling from the old chimney. Marcus was already there. Early 20s, nervous energy, fists buried in his hoodie pockets. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, looking around like he wasn't sure he belonged. "I don't even know where to start." "You don't have to," I said. "We'll figure it out." We sat by the fire pit. I handed him a notepad. He talked about his designs, his ideas, the stuff he wanted to build but didn't know how to pitch. Then he looked over the flames and asked, "Do you think your family ever forgave you?" I didn't flinch. "That stopped being the goal," I said. The wind picked up through the pines, slow, steady, like it had nothing to prove. I leaned back, watched the smoke drift upward, and looked out over the hills. No spotlight, no noise, no need to prove anything to anyone. I wasn't proud, just free.